Second thing is, as leaders, we set an example for those around us, and maybe more of an example even than we think at times. So if I give myself, let's use the term permission, to work out every day and say this isn't optional when I'm not busy, this is essential, this is the first thing I do is take care of myself, I give permission to others to do that, and then the world becomes a better place. So I show up.
Being on a podcast,
I think pitfall is too much of that.
But writing to me it's a compulsion.
I was one of those hard workers that.
I think quite honestly, the fitness industry and the sports performance industry has probably done a better job in looking at nutrition as it impacts it than.
Kind of looks like we're FaceTiming with someone, which is interesting. Eric Roza, today's guest of the Escapist Corner, and the new CEO. Is it okay to say new anymore because it's been now for a year?
Since we're past my anniversary, maybe it's not quite new anymore.
It's not new anymore.
Still fresh, though. Maybe fresh is a better word.
Fresh. It looked very fresh. So, Eric, you had a blasting workout this morning. He's been traveling from country to country, seeing hundreds of people, and I'm very honored, first of all, that you took the time to put this into your schedule. So
it's a pleasure to be with you.
And we've been chit-chatting a bit, and just before we tried to fix the technical stuff here. And I always like to understand everyone that is, if it's in the fitness industry or if it's in business or so on, it's like where their drive comes from, what makes them tick. And usually it's something, let's say, not very obvious maybe. But before we we dive into that, I just thought we would start from how did you decide you will open up an affiliate?
I had really seen the magic of CrossFit since I had started 12 years ago. And I've always been very passionate about fitness in general. So when I found CrossFit, I just couldn't believe that I hadn't discovered it prior. CrossFit obviously wasn't nearly as big 12 years ago, but it still had some scale in the U.S. And I was already 40 when I found it. And I just felt like I had been wasting time until then, just not doing real workouts. So I immediately shifted. At the time, I was running a lot. And I had injured myself running, so I got really into CrossFit, was introducing it to my friends, talking about it all the time, had actually started people doing CrossFit at my tech company that I was leading at the time, and decided then to open my own box.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting point of view, because most people that open up boxes and affiliates, they do it because they really felt the change that happened. And something I wanted to talk to you about and ask you about, is this let's say connection between being a good leader and being fit, because usually that's very neglected in corporate business.
Do you mean leaders neglect fitness, or people who are really into fitness neglect leadership?
No, I think it's the opposite way around, to be honest. I think fitness are a bit better at, let's say, trying to improve their leadership and coaching and whatever, but especially in corporate business, fitness and health gets neglected to a far extent. And how is it this connection then from you coming from a pretty big company, if I'm not totally miscorrect here, but how could you see like that your health improving, your fitness improving, pour into your then current business?
I think there are two things that were important to me as a leader with fitness. One was just personally, I need to feel energized, and I've always felt most energized when I'm taking care of myself with fitness and sleep and social connections, and doing things to replenish my energy. And so I felt like I could show up better as a leader taking care of myself. The second thing is, as leaders, we set an example for those around us, and maybe more of an example even than we think at times. So if I give myself, let's use the term permission, to work out every day and say this isn't optional when I'm not busy, this is essential, this is the first thing I do is take care of myself, I give permission to others to do that, and then the world becomes a better place. So I show up better at work, I give other people the example, they start doing it, they feel better, they show up better at work. It's a nice virtuous circle.
Yeah.
So I think it's a competitive advantage for companies, for the leaders to be fit, and for their teams to be fit.
Exactly. And I couldn't agree more. How do we get more leaders in big corporations and stuff to actually get their eyes on, I can be, Warren Buffett and still be fit?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if anyone can be Warren Buffett.
Okay, it's extreme.
But we can be the best version of ourselves. Again, I think I'm not someone who believes in long delayed gratification. I believe we need to see payoffs and results. And the beauty of CrossFit is we see results very quickly. And I see my energy level the same day and the next day higher after doing a CrossFit workout. I feel better about myself because I'm taking care of myself. And so I think for leaders, they need to try it, right? Mm-hmm. So many people, as they age, they get in worse shape every year. Mm-hmm. And we always talk about, in the United States, I always think about if you gain 1 pound every year, right, from the time you're 30 until the time you're 80, you're 50 pounds heavier. And in addition to the forces of aging, you have the forces of being overweight, making you less able to do things functionally. I think when we speak of functional fitness, we're not just talking physically, we're talking mentally as well. And it helps so much with anxiety and depression and PTSD and other things like that. I think it's non-optional. I think it's essential for people to take care of themselves with fitness. And I'm biased, but I believe CrossFit is the best way to do that. And it's important to say, it's not because I'm in my role that I think CrossFit is the best way to do that. The causality is the other way. The reason I'm in my role, the reason I want to spend the rest of my life doing this is because I already believe CrossFit is the best way.
Yeah. No, and I see this so often with, we have in our gym, for example, people that come from tech industry, programmers, we have leaders, we have project managers and so on, and they do these massive leaps in their health and fitness. And, 1 year later, 2 years later, they have like a total shift in their, but like a massive breakthrough in their career and everything. And
it's amazing, isn't it amazing?
Yeah, that's so amazing. But it's like so hard for us to quantify how, like the connection, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's always something I want to connect to people with. It's like, hey, you put in, because going to the gym, you're investing your time. That's the most, important thing of your day, probably your time, but also, of course, your money. So where is that money going, and what's the return of that invest? So connecting that to people's, their actual, let's say, priorities in life, if it's their job, if they're leaders or whatever. From that to still on the point of leadership, you said something about like leading by doing, kind of. I saw your son has started CrossFit. Is that also something you nurture, at home or?
Yeah, I have 4 kids.
Damn it, I have 3.
Oh, do you? Yeah. And they range in age from 10 to 16. And I think we have to be careful with our kids not to inflict our interests on them. We need to give them their own space and expose them to different things and let them find their own way. And all my kids have tried CrossFit and have done it a bit, but none of them is completely addicted to it the way I am yet. And maybe they never will be. Maybe they will be. It's their own decision. But I think that they like movement. And as an example, when we designed my 13-year-old daughter's loft in her bedroom, we put a little ladder up to the top, a metal ladder, and right next to it we put a metal pull-up bar that hangs from her loft in her bedroom as well. And her 10-year-old sister a year ago got her first muscle up on that pull-up bar.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
yeah, that's awesome. I definitely couldn't agree better. How is it with because I also see this transfer, how it translates from being also like a parent into also being a good leader. Have you felt any situations like in through your career where you were like, okay, I've been through these kind of stuff at home, so I can kind of see, how this translates?
Well, it's interesting because I think in the workplace you have positional authority, right? If you're a CEO, and a lot of people will give you the benefit of the doubt and follow your direction. With my kids, at least, that doesn't happen so much at home, right? You have to. It's a different kind of leadership, and it's very humbling.
Yeah.
They need more space. The more you push them, my kids, the less they're going to comply. And so there's things I can learn at home that translate to work. There are things at work that translate to home. But at the end of the day, these are 2 different examples of leadership, I think.
Yeah. The only thing I've really thought of that really translates very well is to see people. Like, if your kid is doing her first muscle up and you're there seeing that's like you have the connection. Same thing at the workplace when you see someone for their hard work or anything, they really like, okay, nice, I don't need a raise, I just need this confirmation
acknowledgement and helping them celebrate. And it needs to be very sincere and authentic, right? It can't be forced. It can't be a formula. And it needs to be very specific as well. If we generally say, you did a great job, that's okay. Or thank you, that's okay. But when we say, I really like the way you did X, Y, Z, it was very impressive because it led to ABC outcome. That's the most powerful praise I think we can give.
Have you read Carol Dweck's book about candid leadership?
I read Carol Dweck. She's the one who really exposed us to growth mindset also, right? Is that the same person?
I actually, when you say that, I think I've totally mixed two girls up. Because
I think so, yeah. I think Carol Dweck was growth mindset.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly. That's more in the. But yeah, there's a. I'm totally blank on her name. Sorry, but it's about candid.
This is radical candor.
Radical
candor.
Candor. Yeah, there you go.
And I don't remember the author of that one, but
No.
it was another woman, but I don't remember the author.
And she explains her job and role as a CEO. So she was working at her startup, and she got to office, and she was, got bombarded from her co-workers about like, oh, I have my wedding, oh, I'm sick, I have this, and so on. So 5 p.m. she has basically just got to her office, and now she needs to start to work.
Yeah.
And she was so upset about that. And then she had this just mindset shift where she was like, wait a minute, that is my job as a CEO. How is that? How does that relate to you? Do you have, explain how is like a typical role for you now?
Well, I do think that part of our job as a leader is to empathize and to be there for people personally if they need it. So I've always tried to show people that I really care about them personally. At the same time, I need to it's my job to do some protecting of my energy and of my time. And if everyone is pushing their problems at you, professional or personal, it can be very depleting if we're attached to the outcomes and we feel like our job is to solve things. A lot of leaders, and this has certainly been my case, we get our identity from problem solving, and so the temptation is to start to solve everyone's problems, personal or professional. And that's not what people want most of the time, right? They want you to listen and be there for them and give them space to solve their own problems, and you can kind of challenge them. But I would say that's been a hard thing for me on my leadership journey, because I do like to get right to solutions. Okay, what are we going to do? Here's a good idea for you. And I think the more we can evolve as a leader, the more we will hold back and again, create space for the person, show that we care, but keep some detachment from the problem. That's their problem. It's not your problem. And the same with time, as you mentioned. We can't spend the whole day taking in problems, because it can deplete your energy and you have no time, and the whole time you're not present because you're looking at your watch saying, shit, I gotta get out of here, you know?
So, but you touched on a very important point there, and it's kind of prioritizing your time in one sense. But that like requires clarity. So
It does.
How do you keep yourself clear-minded and basically how to keep focused? Because I looked a bit on your resume, and it seems like you're like a octopus in multiple businesses all over. And I totally understand that you're not like in the daily operations of all these businesses, but how do you keep clarity, and how do you stay focused?
Well, I tend to go very deep on things while I'm doing them, but I do like having a lot of balls in the air. You know, I get more energy from doing that than only having one or two things going on. But at each time, I try to be very focused. I will tell you that at my best, I'm very focused on saying, today, these are the 2 or 3 most important things, and I'm going to push through them. When I'm not at my best, which also happens a good amount of the time, then I'm just kind of I'm letting other people set my agenda for me. And I'm, clearing my email box and clearing my texts and hearing people's problems and jumping around. But at my best, it's much more, we need to get done this today. So for example, with CrossFit, when we were launching CrossFit affiliate programming, I was very focused on that, and I knew that was something that affiliates needed. I knew it was something that coaches needed. It would be good for the community. And so I was spending almost all my time on CrossFit affiliate programming, getting into great amounts of detail on how the product worked and how that we did a small acquisition to enable us to launch that. So I was very involved in the acquisition also.
Awesome.
Sometimes there are important things that I'm not as involved in, but on this one I really wanted to be the one to drive it. And I think I was at my best then in terms of giving it a lot of focus, but not every day is like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've been definitely having a lot of balls in the air since you took this role. But take me back. Who was Eric at 15? Where were you?
I think I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. So I think I had a little bit of entitlement that the world owed me something. I was good at school, but I didn't work that hard, so I was lucky to be good at school. I don't feel like I worked that hard. I got at the age of 13, I started playing the guitar, and I got really into music. So at the age of 15, I was playing the guitar probably 2-3 hours every day and singing. And really, and it's still something I do today. And in fact, I have a gig. I get home tomorrow, Tuesday, and I have a gig on Saturday and another one the following Thursday. That's not always what it's like, but I have 2 coming up. So that's been an important part of my life. So if you saw me at the age of 15, I was playing in a band. I was going to see a lot of music. Every day I wore a concert t-shirt, every day.
So how many hours did you also spend searching for LPs?
Oh yeah, I did a lot of that too. Yeah, I was really into music. That was by far the most important thing to me, more than sport or fitness was at that age. I did that. I played some football, and I had started skiing by that point, but music was much more important at that time.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up on the East Coast of the United States in Philadelphia, which is a big. I was not in Philadelphia. I was in the suburbs of Philadelphia, but it's a few hours from New York City.
Yeah. Everyone knows Fresh Prince, so.
Right, yeah. And Philadelphia is a historic town. It had a big place in the Revolutionary War and so on. It's one of the oldest. It's where Ben Franklin was from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know somewhat of Philadelphia, especially all the ice hockey players in the 90s. That was my my gym. No, but I definitely I can connect to this. So when I was 13 and I got it was like a new world. Music open for me too.
Are you a musician?
Yeah.
What do you play?
I also play guitar and I sing and I write.
Let's go right now.
I'm not the best at all, but I also been touring and gigging.
That's great. Well, it's kind of like CrossFit. It's really irrelevant if we're the best, right? It's an activity we can immerse ourselves in that pulls us out of our head and gets us in a different flow state. And so it's funny because I can get competitive, certainly about CrossFit and even about music. And you'll hear someone amazing play the guitar or sing and say, "Why do I even bother?" Right? Which is the nice thing about writing songs, because when you write your own song, it's like no one else could have written the song.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool.
It's very cool. What do you remember? What song or band that was that made you kind of like, well, okay?
I can tell you one moment. This wasn't maybe the first one. I think the first one was the Beatles.
Yeah.
So I fell in love with the Beatles very early on, and then Bruce Springsteen probably.
Yeah.
What else were my early albums? Grateful Dead. I had one of their greatest hits albums. Obviously.
That seems like to be like the CrossFit band.
But I'll tell you that one of my magic moments with listening to music was I lived in France also growing up. My father's French, and they had some friends who were, I think they were Scottish, and we went over to their house, and the guy was playing something. And I fell in love with it, and it was Dire Straits' Sultans of Swing.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought that was the best song I ever heard in my life. And so then I started to listen to Dire Straits and all their music, but I learned the solo. When I was 15, I learned every note of the solos to Sultans of Swing. I just listened to it over and over and over and over. And I didn't play very good versions of the solos, but I played all the solos.
Yeah, that's an... Yeah, I can totally see that. I moved to Berlin because I wanted to go deeper for my musical career, and because I thought like everyone was kind of growing up back in Sweden and getting busy with their lives and job and everything, and I thought I was working as a consultant, so I was like I can kind of do my own time.
Yeah.
But Berlin is this artistic city with a lot of it's a bit of anarchy when it comes to bar life, to all that. So a bit like if I could imagine how Greenwich Village was in the States or in New York, I think that's how Berlin was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it still kind of is, because you still have like totally uncontrolled like musical market and concerts just popping up and all these like, you know, outdoor stuff happening without any permit really, and you know, a lot of just artists. So I thought, good, Berlin is the city to go, not too far from home, and I can just, you know, there are people there that have a lot of time, so we could create a band and we're just gonna, you know, crush the market. And but then I also discovered CrossFit, and also got to become a parent. So I left my guitar kind of when I moved. I never like played 1 year and then like just stopped. And then when I got my first daughter, then I took it up again, and and this, I think I've developed more in my musical touch, if we say, since I got my kids.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have that where you know, it's the same thing as with CrossFit. You can't force the kids to play music.
Right. Yeah.
But just having that ambience of like, hey, dad can play the guitar and gladly sing for you. I hope that kind of, I don't know, attaches to them some way.
Yeah.
And have you, how has it been for you? Have you had like bigger breaks in your musical?
I have, yeah. I when I started to have kids, and I have 4 kids, I had a pretty big break, certainly a big break in gigging, but even playing much less, writing songs much less, but I would try to play for my kids, and I would write some silly songs for them, right?
Those are the best.
Yeah, and my oldest son in particular, and my younger son, not the girls as much, but they used to really like to sing with me. And it wouldn't always be the songs you would think, you know, but some song would catch their attention and they would want to sing with me. That doesn't happen as much anymore.
Yeah.
But it makes me very happy when it happens. But as they got older, then I came back into playing externally. And I was divorced or separated 3 years ago, and then divorced soon after that. And that really opened up playing for me as well, because the kids were with me half the time, very focused on them. And then the other half, I had a lot of space to play music. And so that opened up new songwriting. I go through long gaps with no songwriting, sometimes years. And I think I'm never going to write a song again. I'm done. It's empty. There's nothing left. And then some magic happens, and I start to write again.
But it's, I also see these similarities with CrossFit where, like, let's say you have a workout and kind of you have all these problems going on, and especially as a leader, you have, let's say, bigger problems you need to solve and are tiny, whatever, but you go to the gym and those problems disappear. You come back to work, boom, you have new ideas and how to solve them. And so it's like a catalyst of for that idea creation and so on. And music has the same capacity for like mental, let's say, clarity too, right? So you have all these things, and especially I don't know, I have this hypothesis that the most let's say sad people are probably the ones that made the best songs, you know, in one sense, because they have something like really needs to get out.
Yeah, I think there's a sensitivity that's there. I think where to be, when I'm at my best as a musician, I'm tuning into something that other people aren't tuning into. It might be emotion, it might be something, it might be a feeling in my body, but there's something going on that maybe even for me, I don't usually notice. And so I think that's true for people who create any form of art, that there's maybe more sensitivity there. And I've always been, sensitive in that way, I guess, where I feel things I think that other people don't feel. And I do think also that playing music or writing music is one of the best ways for me to get into a flow state. And that's true with CrossFit too, kind of as you said. And I do think those flow states translate because they translate to better success at business and better success with personal relationships, because it gets you out of your head and all the bullshit noise in your head, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it comes down to, it creates you this mind space for suddenly you get a bit more clarity. And I wanted to kind of hook back on the things kind of we talked at the beginning, and it's this like, what could, because you've been in the tech industry also for such a long time, so you have very good insight into how that is. What things could like CrossFit learn from tech companies, and what could tech companies learn from CrossFit?
I think that CrossFit can learn from tech companies the importance of innovation, while like we talk about with CrossFit, we innovate while maintaining the methodology, and I think that's what we've tried to do. And so in the tech world, if you stagnate and don't innovate, you die, because your competitors do that. So I think that's what CrossFit can learn, is we can continue to get better and innovate at what we do and find. And I think the other thing, obviously, with technology is scalability and thinking, how can we grow? I think it's very important to keep growing. So I think that's number two. I had a third one. I think the other one is CrossFit always talks about outcomes, and we see outcomes, but I don't think we measure outcomes very well in CrossFit. And I think the importance of data and analytics to measure outcomes is very important, and it can persuade others also to come. Some people are persuaded with emotional arguments, and some people are persuaded more with analytical arguments.
Yeah.
So it's important for us with CrossFit to do both. I think in terms of the other direction, I think what tech can learn from CrossFit is the importance of personal connection. If I had to pick one thing, that would be it. And so much of tech is trying to create an abstraction layer and use technology as a substitute for human connection, or a way to connect with more people. So it scales the number of connections, but it weakens the quality of those connections. And I think with CrossFit, the way we build community, if we compare CrossFit to a social network, is completely different, and it's much, much stronger, and it's much more energizing. And when I first discovered CrossFit 12 years ago, I said, and I worked a lot with the social networks in my job, but I was never a big user of social networks. And I didn't find that it brought out the best in me to use social networks. I'm always looking at how many people liked my post.
Yeah.
It's so stupid, right?
Yeah.
But I can't help it. I'm human, right?
Yeah.
And with CrossFit, the first time I did, I said, this is the real social network, right? It's connecting this community and real people seeing and touching each other. So I think that's what tech can learn from CrossFit more than anything else.
Yeah, you touched on something interesting. You said some people are emotionally interested, and some people are more by the data.
Yeah.
And do you know who Jordan Peterson is?
I love Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Sounds like we have the same reading list.
It sounds like it. No, I spent a lot of time through his material, but something it taught me, because I always see like, what can I learn from this industry or from that? And I worked a lot with hotels, so what can CrossFit gyms learn from the service, mindness, and everything from hotels?
That's a great one. Yeah.
But then I stumbled on Jordan Peterson's. I mean, it's not his discovery or anything, but it just sums up like, the personality traits that people have.
Yeah.
And if you know personality, it's not really from tech or so, but just if you know personality traits a bit better, you also know how to engage more with people.
Yeah.
Like, is it data or is it emotion, or are they disagreeable, agreeable? And I even did a small analysis of what's the, like, how did CrossFit grow? And I thought, like, actually CrossFit was like this bunch of disagreeable people at the beginning, and how do you get disagreeable people on the same page? It's by saying we against them. So we are, we're this fringe and we're doing this, and like all these others are kind of our our enemies, like, figuratively speaking. But that creates this connection, and then I think CrossFit has evolved. So we're not the disagreeable people anymore.
Right. I hope not.
No, because when we look at our gyms, most of our members are, really happy, fun moms and dads.
Yep.
That's most of the members at the CrossFit gyms today. And of course we see like the extremities, like the I don't know, Tia Claire Toomeys and so on, that are like awesome athletes, but they're not doing, like, they're not a big part of, like, it's not a big number of the members out there in the community. So I think that's something that has, let's say, maybe changed. And I think it was maybe different when CrossFit just started. Maybe it was, it was just this, bunch of people, and then the thing that kind of attracted was this like elite fitness. But the crazy thing is that with data you can actually measure and see how we make someone going from sick to fit.
Right.
And this sickness and fitness continuum is one of the things that I was blown away about.
Well, I think I like what you said about the change in the cultural aspects of CrossFit since the early days. I think there's some truth in that. And I think that part of it was a much smaller group of people doing CrossFit. That's not at all the way that I want to see CrossFit now or going forwards. But I think it's very natural for humans. Humans like to be in tribes, right? And as soon as you get into a tribal mentality, which again it's a natural state for humans, it can then easily become us versus them, and that can strengthen bonds and strengthen cultures. I don't believe it has to work that way. So for me personally, I think I like to look at people's common humanity and say, and Greg Glassman has a great quote, right, where he says, CrossFit's not for everyone, but it's for anyone. And I truly believe that anyone can do CrossFit. And I think I'm not critical of people who don't do CrossFit, because I think people who don't do CrossFit can be future CrossFitters. Yeah. And so I want to treat them well, and then when they're ready, they'll come to us.
Yeah. Well, I think this tribalism, I think there's something good and bad from it. Yeah. So, but what CrossFit has showed us much more than maybe other sports is there any other sport where the athletes back each other up so much, and affiliates even, and I would say no. Like, we have these, like, say we have competitions, we have those things going, and you have these athletes on the floor, and you have like a full community behind them. There's no like, no, I'm just for the Americans, or I'm only for the Swedes or whatever. Right, no, it's very like, that was an awesome achievement, and we can really acknowledge that, right?
Yeah. I mean, CrossFit has already become not just the biggest fitness brand and chain in the world, but one of the most global sports in the world. CrossFit's, I'm sure, in the top 10 of most global sports now. And you're absolutely right that now we have things in common with people in the Middle East that we don't even know, right? And CrossFit is happening in Saudi Arabia, and it's happening in Abu Dhabi, and it's happening in Dubai. And so that makes the world a little bit smaller, and it starts to change the tribalism of us versus them of different cultures, which is really nice.
Yeah, I think one aspect of it is the health part of it, like the fitness makes you healthy.
Yeah.
And I have to go back to Jordan Peterson again, but there are clear studies saying that the healthier people are, the more open they are. So healthier, happier people are much more open to new ideas.
Right.
And the more disease you have, the more conservative
It closes you.
it closes you down. And
Because you're moving down Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Where you're just trying to survive instead of thriving, I think.
and that's usually where all these, if you want to look from a societal point of view, is like that's where you see the cultures of retracting, being
Right.
afraid of other cultures,
Right.
or so on. But so I don't know. This is my hypothesis. We make people more open. We make more
I
people
think
more
you're right.
happy.
Yeah.
I want to. I think we're kind of out of time. I could keep on talking for hours here, but again, I'm super happy for you taking your time today. You have a busy schedule, and we're going to move on to the other stuff today. Do we have any final words from you? Have we missed anything? I know we haven't talked so much about like what's the main plan of CrossFit and so on, but I think
I've talked about that a lot.
you've talked about that a lot, so I think we don't need to maybe do a deep dive so much of that, but
Here's what I'd say is I think we have a big promise to people, and I want us to uphold that promise. And I think the promise is you will get healthier if you devote yourself to CrossFit. We will help you get healthier. We will help you be happier, and we will help you be higher performing, not just in the gym, but as you said, in your work life as well. And most people who do CrossFit see these things. We've surveyed them now, so we're not just hoping. This is true. Somewhere between 75 and 90% of people find that they tell us that they're happier, they're healthier, they're higher performing as a result of CrossFit. So that's the standard that I look for, and that's the standard of what we need to do. As you're an affiliate owner, I'm an affiliate owner. And the way that we do it is by providing everybody with an excellent experience every day when they come into the gym. It's hard to do. It's very hard to do. But we have the tools, and we need to provide a great workout. We need to connect with members, and that will create a great community. That happens on its own. And when the great community gets created, now we have the recipe with the workout and the methodology and the great coaching relationships and the community to make people healthier, happier, and higher performing. And we'll reach more and more people. And before we know it, 10, 20, 30 years, we've got 100 million people whose lives are changed as a result of CrossFit. And that's an amazing thing to achieve, on this planet during our one chance to be here.
I actually have two last questions. That's it. First one, short one. Which book has made the most impact on you, professionally or privately? Like after reading it, you were like, okay, new mindset.
There are a lot of books that probably have had a big impact on me. I've enjoyed some books that talk about mindfulness and presence and spirituality separated from religion so that it applies to everyone. And so one book that I really enjoyed was Sam Harris, Waking Up. You read that too? Yeah. We have the same reading list. That's great.
Awesome.
And then there are there's some other shorter books. There's a Vietnamese Buddhist monk named Thich Nhat Hanh, and he's written some wonderful books. One is called Peace is Every Step. And then there's another one, and that's just short pieces, 1 to 2 pages each, just on everyday life and enjoying everyday life and just being really present for it. There's another similar book called by John Kabat-Zinn called Wherever You Go, There You Are, and that's another amazing book that just helps me be present in my daily life.
I heard about that book like 3 or 4 times the last 7 days.
Oh, really?
I think
maybe
it's a sign.
Time. Yeah,
it's time.
Yeah, funny the way that works.
Last question, which is maybe the hardest. Name one like one of your biggest mistakes you've done and what you learned from that?
I think a mistake that I've made and maybe continue to make is to identify too much with my professional identity. And that makes it very, that can create a lot of challenges when things aren't going well at work. It helps drive me to be successful, but it probably makes me less consistently happy as a person if you depend for your identity on what you do for work. So that's something that it's a challenge that I work on all the time.
Awesome. Yeah, I think why I'm asking is not because I want to put you on the spot. I think that's where we make the biggest learnings is by our, mistakes. And
yeah, I often ask people when I'm interviewing them for a job, I say, what's the biggest mistake you've made in the last year?
I worked too hard.
Tell me what, yeah. I learned too fast and I worked too hard, right? And what have you learned from it? And if people can tell, can be specific about a mistake, I know this is someone who's going to learn, which is one of the most important things, I think, for somebody as a professional to keep learning.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you so much, and
Thanks for having me.
I look forward to talk about Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson, everything. Until next time, and look forward to you got the Louvre.
Yeah, I got the CrossFit Louvre.
Mr. Daniel Chaffin.
And today I got
Being on a podcast.
Any pitfall is too much of that.
But writing to me it's a compulsion.
I was one of those hard workers that
Quite honestly, the fitness industry and the sports performance industry has probably done a better job in looking at nutrition as it impacts it than